We're going to attempt to answer one of the biggest questions ever today using science. Now, I've heard it said many times, people want to know, if God knows everything, how is it possible that we have free will? The idea being, He's omnipotent, understands all, sees all, knows all. How could any of us be making any free will choices? Well, I'm going to use some really cool recent science to demonstrate exactly how that could be. Starting with this idea, imagination is more important than knowledge. Now that was said by Mr. Knowledge himself, Albert Einstein, okay? And he said imagination is more important than knowledge, which means being able to dream and visualize and see things outside the box is more important than actually understanding how things work. So we're going to talk today about something that's going to require a little imagination, and it's quite helpful to think outside the box as opposed to figuring out, or at least attempting to figure out all the little details and the science of everything. But we're going to hit the question of how could God understand all and yet all of us still have free will by looking at some recent science developments. So, 100 years ago, scientists came up with the concept of superposition, understanding how reality works based upon studying the physics of the very small. And 100 years ago, I'm emphasizing that because most people haven't heard of this yet. 100 years ago, scientists were able to determine that particles can exist in more than one place at any given time. Right? Superposition, more than one place at a time. We're so used to ourselves being in one place and we only think of it that way. A lot of us have heard about the multiple dimensions of space that are potentially out there, and we think of alternate versions of ourselves, but we're getting closer and closer to understanding that that's the actual reality of the world that we're living in. Okay? Well, the idea of superposition has been around for 100 years, and it's about time we get up to speed with what it really means. And future generations are going to be looking at this, the world that we're living in, they're going to be thinking of the world that we're living in as a simulation. Go Google, is reality a simulation? You're going to come up with, millions of hits. The idea that we're in a matrix, some sort of an illusion, okay? That's something that we're still currently trying to figure out. Prophets talked about it thousands of years ago. Science is just getting up to it. I would hate to be the last person to figure out that we're in a simulation. Okay? We are getting to the point where that's going to become known as fact before too long. Future generations will study this. The question then is, first of all, what does that mean and how do we apply that? So with the idea that particles are in more than one place at a time, having been around 100 years, what's happened recently is that they've taken larger objects, not just little particles, molecules. In fact, molecules made up of 2,000 atoms, and they found that they also exist in more than one place at a time. It used to be that the quantum stuff only worked on the very small. And the idea was, well, maybe we can't go from the small to the large, and we can't apply the quantum stuff to the world at large. Well, it's just little particles that operate that way. Well, they've now taken molecules of 2,000 atoms, and they've been able to demonstrate that they also exist in more than one place at a given time. A lot of these scientific studies are readily available on the internet. We talk about them in some of these videos and in the book New Eyes as well, using something called the double slit experiment. And that's what they did with these, what they call giant molecules. Scientific American magazine that's describing this article says future generations will just be pushing the mass. They'll be making bigger and bigger molecules and putting them through the interferometer, and they're going to be able to demonstrate that larger and larger molecules also exist in more than one place at a given time. But at the end of the Scientific American article, it says, it probably won't be possible to fire yourself through an interferometer anytime soon. Right? Because that's what we all want to know. If particles could exist in more than one place at a given time, and bigger things like 2,000 atom molecules could exist in more than one place at a given time, what about us? Is that what's happening with us as well? We don't need to wait to put ourselves through the interferometer. You know why? Because we're already doing it right now. We are currently living in a world that has us in more than one place at a given time, but you're only aware of the one. Now, this is what the future generations are going to be studying and looking at. What is going on here? What is the science of this? I'm going to be talking about the practical application of it. Whenever the science catches up and we figure this out, the question will be, how do we use this? and this is mind-blowing, what is going on here? And I'm going to say it's not that mind-blowing. Most of us have been doing this all the time when we play video games. So here's where we're going to apply the imagination. What I want you to do is think of a video game and how video games work. And I love to use Pac-Man because it works well. Most people know what Pac-Man is, okay? We have a designer of a video game putting together all the features of the game, all the rules, using code, and the designer of the game knows everything that's in that game. And inside the game Pac-Man, there's an infinite number of variations where Pac-Man could go, right? I think as you start, he's in the middle and he could go left or right. There's like bars above him and he could go left or right. That's the option. And if he goes left, he can then go up or down. Well, he could have gone right to start and gone up or down, and then the game begins. And there's so many different places where he could go. All of them exist in what's called superposition prior to the start of the game. If you could imagine, where might I be 10 seconds into the game of Pac-Man, you could imagine all the different places Pac-Man could go. In each one of those places is a potential place that exists in the code of the game. Pac-Man could go left, he could go right, he could go left and then up, he could go left and then down. He could go right then up, he could go right then down, he could go right then down, then left and right, and you get the idea, okay? An infinite number of places where he could be. But all of them are just potential places. When we talk about particles in superposition being in multiple places at once, they're just potential places. It exists potentially over here and potentially over there. But it's both at the same time, and that's the mind-blowing thing. Wait a minute, how could a particle be here and there? When you go to actually observe, this is the key part of this experiment, the observer collapses the wave function, and the particle shows up at one of those places. But prior to the observer, it's in both places. In fact, it's an infinite number of places. This is our daily life on a regular basis. It's like a video game. I could be here, I could be here, I could be here. Now, when you go to play the game Pac-Man, you pick left or right. You get started. And as soon as you go left, does the guy that went right disappear, the little Pac-Man? No, he's still in the code somewhere. He's still a potential, he's still there. But you went left, and then you went left and up. Well, what about the guy that could have gone left and down? Still in the game, right? It's still a potential. All of the places Pac-Man could be is in superposition. This is the world we're currently existing in right now. Right now we're sitting in office having a little conversation. In about 5 seconds I could be out that door. It has to exist, the possibility of me being out that door. Now I didn't choose that path. Here I am, still here, but there was a potential Steve outside that door. You could be in so many different places right now, right? And all of them exist in what's called superposition. But you're only experiencing the one. What you're experiencing is the one that you made the choice, that your consciousness, or your soul, whichever word works best for you, went along with your character. See, the moment I'm playing Pac-Man and I go left or right, my mind is attached to Pac-Man, and that little character goes with my mind. My mind says go left, my mind says go right. The character itself, which isn't me, the character itself will go one of those places or the other based upon what my mind focuses on. The wave function is also collapsed. This is our daily life on a regular basis. You're making choices. You could have gone that way, you could have gone that way. Both of those places exist. That's ultimately the difference between us and those giant molecules. They've studied that molecules can be in multiple places at once, just as we can. What's the difference? Human consciousness. See, those molecules aren't collapsing any wave function. They're otherwise inert. I mean, they're alive, and they probably have some form of consciousness. But the human consciousness does the collapsing of the wave function. That's the double slit experiment. And so you have a potential, and consciousness, or the observer, interacts with it, and then you end up at a certain place. We have a potential pizza sitting before us. If we collectively agreed to get a pizza, next thing we know, we call the pizza guy, and a pizza shows up. We could also order Chinese food, right? All of those are potentials. I, using my mind, collapse the wave function of all the potential Steves, and I end up in one place or another. This is the game we're in. We're all playing a game. Now, if I'm playing Pac-Man, there's a very specific object of the game. Eat the cookies, eat the cherries, stay away from the ghosts. Clear the board, go to the next board. The next board gets quicker, right? And the ghosts go quicker. And what are you supposed to do on that board? Eat the cookies, eat the cherries, and avoid the ghosts, right? And then the next board gets quicker. That's basically Pac-Man. And that's the game. While you're in that game, can you do anything else? Nope, you gotta play Pac-Man. Can't play Frogger when you're playing Pac-Man. That's the game you're playing. Can you control that game? Well, you can control what you do in that game, but you can't control the nature of the game. The game is the game, that's what it is. This is the universe we're living in. One of my favorite verses from the Tao, verse 29 says, "Do you think you can take control of the world and improve it? It cannot be done." Why? Because we're in a simulation. We're in a video game that has very specific rules. There's rules down here that are going to determine what ends up happening to you in your game. If I'm driving down the highway, I have the potential of being in a car accident. If I'm impatient and in a hurry and I'm distracted and I'm looking at my phone, did I increase the probability of a car accident? Yes. Could I also decrease the probability of a car accident by not being distracted, by being more impatient and being less of a hurry? Of course. Car accident and not car accident are both examples of superposition. The energy that's flowing through me, my consciousness, my patience, and my focus, that will determine which feature of the game that I play. If I'm playing golf, right, and there's a lake in front of me, and I'm focused on that lake, I'm more likely to go into that lake. But what if I can block that out and I focus on the green? My shot, superposition, could go in the lake or on the green. Both of those actually occur somewhere inside the game, but I'm only going to experience one of them based upon probability and the nature of where my consciousness is at. We all know this is the case. We're doing this all the time already. The way we see the world is going to impact the way we experience the world. By no means is it always fair. That's definitely not the case, and that's for another video, okay? It's not always a direct one-to-one. If I think the ball is going to go in the hole, it goes in the hole. That's not what it is. It's probabilities. Sometimes things happen to us that are terribly unfair, okay? So we're not going to victim shame anybody. You didn't deserve anything that happened to you. But can we break free from some of the things that happen to us by looking at the world in a certain kind of way? Yes, because those who stop obsessing over the physical world game can break free from the experience of the game by realizing they're not actually a character in the game. If I am playing Pac-Man and I fall asleep and I think that I'm Pac-Man after a while, and when the game ends I start walking around still going waka 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 or whatever, and I'm still looking for cookies and cherries and thinking that there are ghosts all over the place, I forgot that I'm Steve. And now I think I'm Pac-Man. That's known as a sleep. And then stuff's going to happen that doesn't work so well, okay? It's not going to jive with this actual reality that I'm in if I think that I'm Pac-Man. But while I'm playing Pac-Man, I know it's a game, and I'm sitting there on the couch and I have this awareness. I'm totally into the game, but I have this awareness that I'm actually Steve sitting on a couch. If we're in a simulation, what we actually are is a conscious being having an experience of the superpositional self. Steve could be here, 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 anywhere. But I'm the conscious being having that experience of Steve. And now I can break free from my obsession of the physical game that I'm in. See, just like the creator of Pac-Man existed and understand all the rules of the game, so did we have a creator. And that could mean a lot of different things. But think of ourselves in a game with all the rules that are already set up, rules like gravity, okay? I'm not going to be able to change this. Gravity's working on all of you right now, too, unless you're watching this from space. If we are in a game in which there's rules to the game, those rules were set up before us. There's lots of scripture on that, too. And those rules are rules that we have to play by. And if I'm in that game, guess who knows all the things that could happen in the game? Well, the creator, of course. The creator designed the game, knows everything that'll happen. If I'm the creator of Pac-Man and I watch someone play my game and the character goes to the left and up and there's a ghost coming down and I see them getting closer to each other, do I have a pretty good idea what's going to happen? Yes. And if I set the game up such that whenever the Pac-Man hits the ghost, the Pac-Man character dies, then I have omnipotence. I know what's going to happen whenever the character does this. I also know what's going to happen when the character does that. It's like a psychologist who does a maze experiment with a lab rat. And you've got the cheese over here, and you have a snake over here, and I can watch from above, and I watch the mouse or the little rat go through the maze, and I see if it goes to the right, it'll find the cheese, and if it goes to the left, it'll find a snake. And I know what's going to happen if it goes to the right, it's going to be happy. And I know what's going to happen if it goes to the left, it's going to be killed. And so I know what the outcome is going to be in every single situation, don't I? You know, because I set it up that way. The Creator also knows what's going to happen to us based upon the choices we make, based upon the probabilities. The more impatient I am, the more likely of a car accident I'm going to get into, right? I'm also more likely to have a headache and some heart issues if I'm too stressed and too worried about things. You might also lose your hair if you're too worried about things, okay? All sorts of bunch of things happen inside this game, all very specifically defined by superpositional rules. And so that's how the Creator knows all. He can see everything that you're going to do because He's watching it from above, and as you do it, He knows exactly what's going to happen. Now He knows the outcome. Again, imagination is more important than knowledge. Just visualize that because you're not what you think you are. You're much more than that. You're a spiritual conscious being, and you're in this body, if you will, and the conscious choices that you make end up putting your body in a different place. Listen to this from about 3,000 years ago, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord resides in the heart of all creatures, making them real magically as if a machine moved them. That's Krishna teaching Arjuna how the world works. And he says, well, there's a Lord, or this thing called the Spirit, that's inside of each one of us. And it makes you real magically. Well, that's fascinating. Think of a movie reel. Right? It's just like a video game. It's designed to demonstrate a movie. And now you can watch the movie based upon this reel. It's the light that goes through the film that leads to the movie on the screen. Well, all of us have that light inside of us, and it makes us move. And it seems like it's magical, but it's actually designed that way. Making them real magically as if a machine moved them, okay? A machine, we're in a machine. This is the simulation, that's the idea. This universe is a computer, and we're just players in the game. Reminds me of the Shakespeare line that all men and women are just actors on this stage. That's what we are. And we're in a system. We're in a matrix. We're in an illusion. We're in a simulation. We're in a video game. Whatever works best for you. And there's very specific rules. So what's the end game? Again, the creator of Pac-Man knows, got to clear all the boards. I'm not even sure what the end is. Can you clear like an infinite number of boards? Probably runs out at some point. What about our game? It's actually very simple. Wake up. Wake up and realize that you're a character inside a video game. This is what's known as awakening, okay? Or to be born again. Jesus said, a man is born once of flesh and a second time of spirit. And this confused Nicodemus, right? He's like, I don't understand what that means. And Jesus is like, you're a teacher of Israel. How can you not understand this? Well, this is how you can understand it. You're in a video game right now, and you're wearing an avatar. It's you, all right, because your spirit's inside of you. But what happens when you remove the avatar? What happens when Pac-Man dies? Do you die? No, you just realize you're sitting on the couch playing a game. Time to move on to something else. The difference is I am in Pac-Man right now, okay? And I am seeing through Pac-Man's eyes. Steve is an avatar. All of us are. And we're playing this game, and the ultimate point of this game is to realize that. Doing so is why Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is inside you, why the word Buddha means to wake up. It's nirvana, it's samadhi, it's all these various teachings that make you realize, this is just a game. Now that's not to diminish the importance of a game, okay? It's a very, very intense, very, very good game. Very, very highly pixelated game, okay? But a game is what it is. And to win the game, just have to wake up. Just realize that. What's known as asleep is when you think you're the character in the game. What's known as awake is to realize you are actually outside the game, inside the game, and you are doing both at the same time. That's duality. I'm a spiritual being in a physical body. While you're in the game, do whatever you want. The Creator doesn't care. In the game, of Pac-Man, I could do a bunch of stuff. I can clear the first board, and I can just sit there. I can just run away from a ghost if I want. I never have to scroll off and go to another board. I could just like do a little dance, like listen to some music inside Pac-Man. And it's infinite. There's so many different things you could do in Pac-Man. In this game, there's an infinite number of things you can do. Have fun, right? Go exploring. It's a gift. What a game. It's a lot of fun stuff to do. But if you make the one mistake, it's ultimately the original sin. The one mistake by believing you are the character in the game, that's about as silly as thinking you're Pac-Man. So what's God? The creator of the game. There's definitely a game here. Something's going on, very specific rules, very precise rules. All of us are playing the same game at the same time. Prophets, thousands of years ago, taught us the rules of the game. What are some of the rules? Be forgiving, be kind, be compassionate, be awake, be patient, slow down, take a deep breath, don't fear. Don't worry about death. Death is just Pac-Man turning off. You can go have dinner now. We don't have to play the game the way we've been playing it, all uptight. What we can do is learn how to love each other more and understand while we're down here, the better we recognize that we're playing this type of game. And if we can play by the specific rules, the better off we'll all be. Love another as oneself is to recognize you're playing the game too. A lot of people don't realize they're playing the game. Forgive them, they know not what they do, says Jesus. People don't realize that. They've fallen in love with their avatar. Whether it's their skin color or their gender, the race or the age or the political affiliation, sexual orientation, all of that stuff. That's just features of the game. Once you're outside the game, you realize that. So there's the bottom line. We're all in a game. The creator set up a game. Good way to think of it, using your imagination. You want to learn how to play the game better. Don't all of us have that instinct to learn how to play the game? And deep inside each one of us was placed the desire to learn how to wake up. And each one of us will not be satisfied. Like Morpheus says in the Matrix, that there's a splinter in your mind driving you mad. Each one of us wants to learn how to wake up and realize that this is just a game and I can release it all. Then what happens? Not only do I get to let go of the pain of the physical world that I experienced, in comes the spirit, or the kundalini rises, or all the various teachings say something that's wonderful about the idea of what enlightenment can feel like. We're all playing a game. We have a chance to play the game better. The more I work on it, the better you'll be. The more you work on it, the better that I'll be. And we're working on this together as a team. If you want to be on a team, please don't forget to subscribe and like and share and comment. Thank you very much.